Prime Minister Motley wants developed countries to provide a level playing field for small island developing states. Local tourism in store for greater international exposure. And farmers are seeking ways to improve sheep and goat production.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, Prime Minister Mia Motley has questioned the willingness of the global community to have small island developing states or SIDS as meaningful participants. Ms. Motley raised the issue as a panelist during the United Nations Secretary General's high-level meeting on financing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
We are unequally yoked. More often than not, we're left to deal with middle-level officials who are technocrats, who don't have the capacity to see beyond their particular siloed approach, whether it's finance, whether it is security, whether it is climate change. But I started by telling you that this is a development discussion. And if we are siloed into a debate on finance without looking at development, or security without looking at development, or foreign relations without looking at development, we will never be able to make the ground that we need to make.
And the Prime Minister also shared her view on what is required to allow for greater participation by small island developing states.
We need a more hospitable environment first in terms of policy creation. We need ourselves in many instances, and this is not to deny that there have been a lot of missteps along the way in the developing world, but most developed countries had 2-3 centuries to get it right. We're still at 50, 60 years, and that's not taking responsibility for the actions of those who did nonsense. We will accept and move on from that point. But we do need a hospitable and a clear international environment where leaders speak to leaders. If not, the problems are no longer how will we confront environmental and economic shock, but it will be how will the global community deal with lack of security and migration.
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is lauding Prime Minister Mia Motley for her strong leadership in light of the tough economic challenges she has had to face on assuming office. Prime Minister Trudeau says Canada is aware of the island's tight fiscal situation and is committed to assist Barbados wherever possible, as the two countries boast of always having had a deep and long friendship. He made the remarks during brief talks with Prime Minister Motley on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly bilateral meeting.
There is a deep and long friendship between Canada and Barbados, and I very much look forward to talking with you about the opportunities we have to work together. I know there are significant challenges that you're facing, and Canada is glad to be part of working with you to try and see how we can make sure that we're moving forward in a way that's right for the people of Barbados. But I very much admire your strength of leadership and look forward to working with you.
Well, Prime Minister Motley has welcomed Canada's friendship, noting that Barbados, like Canada, stood hand in hand promoting peace and inclusive fiscal growth for its citizens.
I think that Barbados and Canada both stand as beacons for those values that will promote peace, that seek to promote inclusive growth among our populations, and that recognize that we face perhaps the world's greatest challenge with respect to how we will maneuver in this environment, which is being affected daily by how others choose to satisfy their greed and how others choose to satisfy their failure to live up to obligations that will protect us in the global environment. So we're happy to be here.
Well, Barbados' tourism product could get unprecedented exposure from hundreds of travel writers out of America and Canada, and they're on the island for a major conference. Ken Jerson has that story.
This is a reception for the Society of American Travel Writers, which has more than 250 members here in Barbados for its annual conference. The event provides a unique opportunity for Barbados as a tourism destination.
I think you realize how many new roots we've got out of the USA. So it's very important for us to fit our narrative and really engage as wide a cross-section of the US community to tell them more about Barbados. And we can't just do that on our own.
Barbados was a popular choice for the event, and expectations are high.
This was my first Caribbean island, and I fell in love with the Caribbean because of Barbados. And as a result of that, I was very interested in organizing this conference, and everybody else loved the idea as well. And obviously, all of our people who are here are having a great time. I think it's going to be one of our best conferences ever.
So far, the island is living up to its reputation for the ideal vacation. And that message is expected to be reinforced across America and Canada in the coming weeks.
The conference here gives us an opportunity to explore different parts of the destination, look for story ideas, and hopefully be able to tell some great stories once we get back home.
I was really struck when I first came here on how clean everything was in Barbados compared to other places I've been, and especially how friendly and welcoming people were. Maybe it's because I like Rihanna.
My primary purpose here is to revisit some of the great golf courses that I saw back in 2007. I didn't play Apes Hill when I was here last, but certainly Sandy Lane and Royal Westmoreland. So I've had the privilege of coming to this beautiful island in the past, and glad to be back. And I'm going to retell my story to my Canadian readers when I get back.
The conference wraps up on Friday. Kent Jerson, CBC News.
Kent, thanks. Well, a government minister agrees that prices need to be monitored following the removal of the National Social Responsibility Levy. Recently, there has been some level of concern from Barbadians about supermarket prices. Minister of Home Affairs and MP for St. James North, Edmund Hinkson, described the NSRL as an unfair tax.
If we have taken off a tax that was 10% and that had, in fact, repercussions because it was a tax added on to VAT, etc., and therefore increased cost of living by more than 10%, we now have to, as a government, yes, make sure that we monitor the situation and that the prices come down, and that those sellers of goods and services don't look to jerk out your eye, and we will do that.
Mr. Hinkson was at the time addressing a St. James North branch meeting at the Gordon Greenwich Primary School. He says progress has been made in a number of areas since the Mia Amour Motley-led government assumed office. He says government has ensured the new taxes it has introduced were spread around.
We had to put on some taxes. Yes, we did. Tax on water, tax on sewerage, garbage collection. We spread it across the board. We didn't leave it for any one sector. Yes, the tourists who enjoy our country and our services and our hospitality and friendship, we have them paying some too. The airlines, it is not easy. It is not that we wanted to do this, but we have no choice.
A change to the basket of goods to include more healthy options could be in the works. Program coordinator for the Childhood Obesity Prevention Campaign at the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Barbados, Dr. Grace Showan, says with 1/3 of the school children in Barbados suffering from childhood obesity, the situation is unsustainable. She says they are lobbying to make more healthy foods accessible to every Barbadian.
We've heard a lot about the food basket in Barbados, and as I go around, many persons are telling me, you're talking about healthy food, but it is too expensive. And I also want to state that the Minister of Agriculture has heard the plea, and he has promised that he will be taking the food basket to Parliament, asking that we have the inclusion of vegetables and fruits.
Dr. Showan was speaking to CBC News ahead of tomorrow's Childhood Obesity Prevention Conference at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Centre. The conference, under the theme Collaborative Opportunities and Countermeasures, will bring together stakeholders from financial advisors to manufacturers. Dr. Showan says one aspect they will be covering is advertising aimed at children.
The advert is so capturing. Our children know everything on the menu, and then the parents are forced to please their children, and then they visit them in the hospital. And we have been called the amputation capital of the world. I do not want this to continue, and I should say the Heart and Stroke Foundation is busy at work trying to ensure that we curb the situation.
Well, the family of one of the two Barbadian men murdered in Jamaica over 2 weeks ago is seeking closure and is again calling on the government to assist in getting its loved one's body home. Now, Kishmar Singis visited Anthony Austin, father of Daniel Griffith, and followed this story.
It has been a frustrating wait for information for Anthony Austin, Daniel's father, and his family since the 37-year-old, along with Daryl Yearwood, were brutally murdered. An 18-year-old and a toddler are now fatherless. Mr. Austin says the family, especially his mother, isn't taking Daniel's killing well. The bodies of the two Barbadian men were found in bushes in the parish of St. Thomas earlier this month.
My daughter called me. She lives in Gar Hill crying. I said, "What wrong, Keela?" She said, "I said, something wrong with children, something wrong with you." She said, "No." She said, "Daniel." I said, "What wrong with Daniel?" She said, "Daniel dead." I said, "What I mean dead? Explain yourself what dead, what dead means." She said, Daniel got shot in Jamaica. She got a call from in Jamaica and he got shot in Jamaica. Right? So then after, I messaged his sister and let his sister in the States know, but his sister couldn't tell him, mother. She said, "I'm going to wait till my father come home because he's working on the rail station as an electrician. He ain't come home in the morning. I can tell she wait till there."
Mr. Austin, who is home medically unfit, fears going to Jamaica in the absence of information from local law enforcement.
Right now, I'm frustrated and I need to get my son home. And nobody ain't telling me how to get my son home. They tell me I need a DNA test and I can send it down. I've been to the police here. The police tell me, make phone calls and tell me that the Jamaican police got to correspond with the commissioner of police here in order to get DNA test. It don't go that way. I left and I gone by the CID. I take out my phone. I call the police in Jamaica. They're in charge of the investigation. They talk to the CID station sergeant. But it's to come down there.
Austin says he wasn't aware his son was in Jamaica.
He ain't gonna tell me about the trip to Jamaica. The reason why he ain't telling me about the trip to Jamaica because he once had a scene in Jamaica 2 years ago. And we tell you don't go back there. It ain't nothing big because every time he couldn't get back in Jamaica. So we tell you don't go back there. But it appears that he was going from Jamaica to Canada. He went to Jamaica, look for friends, and from Jamaica to Canada. But he ain't make it to Canada, he ain't even make it over Jamaica.
CBC News understands that Daniel's wish was to be cremated should something happen to him. And his dad intends to fulfill that wish. Kishmar Singis, CBC News.
St. Leonard's Boys' School will remain closed tomorrow because of environmental problems. This information from the Ministry of Education. The school, it says, will reopen on Wednesday, September 26th. The ministry says it wishes to thank parents and guardians for their understanding. In the private sector, service and non-governmental organizations are being encouraged to partner with government as it presses ahead with its national cleanup and beautification program. It started in the Wim St. Peter before moving to Britain's Hill in St. Michael. Now, according to Minister of the Environment and National Beautification, Trevor Prescott, as environmental challenges evolve, government is duty-bound to respond in a positive manner and encourage people to change their habits and practices.
All these efforts are part of a holistic approach to attaining and sustaining optimum levels of national development. I wish now to mention a challenge which has occupied my attention of late: the overgrowth of bush, illegal dumping, and the abandonment of derelict vehicles.
During activities marking Arbor Day over the weekend, Mr. Prescott revealed plans to develop the National Botanical Gardens, making it a safe habitat for biodiversity and recreation. He says government also intends to introduce a best-kept neighborhood competition.
In other words, we're going to have competitions across Barbados, which means that we'll have to work in collaboration with another government agency, and we'll have a national best village. I don't know what the title likely to be, competition, where residents will be encouraged to beautify the surroundings, and then we will have a body of judges who will pass through the community and will identify those homes.
Chairman of the National Conservation Commission, Ramon Aline, says the National Beautification Program has enhanced the role of the NCC, once traditionally focused on parks and beaches.
It has to be a holistic, expanded program where we are getting all hands on deck to achieve this initiative. We expect this effort to be sustainable, and therefore the Commission is committed to providing technical assistance, donations where necessary, provisions of plants at discounted rates, and that really depends on who's coming for the discounted rates. Only this morning the Minister reminded me that we are a commercial entity at the end of the day, and we also need to be trying to pay for our duties, obligations to the country. We cannot just depend on government and supplements and the nature.
Well, residents in the north of the island should be assisting with renovations at one of the country's oldest educational institutions. President of the Alexandra Alumni Association, Felicia Sue, made the appeal as the school celebrates its 124th anniversary. Speaking during a church service at the Christ is the Answer Family Church in Battley St. Peter, Ms. Sue said the association has embarked on a project called Beautify Alexandra, under which several areas of the school will be repaired. She says given the current economic climate, government cannot do all, and she's asking members of the congregation to offer assistance in any way they can.
We have already commenced repairs to 6 third form classrooms, and it's the block which you can see as you pass on the road. 2 of those have been completed so far. So we would like you to assist us by coming and sharing with the painting, as I said, by donating financially, or even providing lunch for us when we work.
At a time when many parents are struggling to provide basic school supplies for their children, a group of former students has come to the assistance of a rural primary school. And principal of that school says the donation could not have come at a better time. Sharika Griffith tells us more.
With a roll of 160 students, the St. Catherine's Primary School is relatively small, but the need is anything but that. Principal Carlton Reid says the start of the new school year was not without its challenges.
At the beginning of the term, the school has had to supply some children with books and resource material so that they can continue their education.
Mr. Reid was therefore pleased to accept a donation of hampers containing school supplies from CEO of Extreme Body Mechanics Fitness Center, Stephen Mason.
I am a past student of St. Catherine's Primary School also. A few members of the gym also are past members, so we decided to come together and raise as much funds to buy as much stuff for the school. I also have sisters and brothers that lives in the United States that also contribute towards this also.
So what are some of the items that were donated?
Well, the items are books, pencils, sharpeners, rubbers, anything you can find that you need for school, we try to get for the children here.
Mr. Mason was also involved in a recent donation of picnic benches by the school's Old Scholars Association, which not only provides students with a place to relax, but also create an opportunity to have classes outside. Principal Reid hopes that more Old Scholars, which include the likes of Governor General Dame Sandra Mason, would provide the school with much needed assistance. Sharika Griffith, Cbc News.